Welcome to Thursday, March 30th, 2023, your Day Weather Podcast brought to you by Cowboy State Daily. Check them out at cowboystatedaily.com. Also being brought to you by WYDOT. Well, there's going to be a lot to discuss here today. We have two systems that will be impactful. One that's coming in later today, tonight, and into tomorrow. It's going to be mainly a mountain event, but will cause some snow and rain showers in the plains, some travel concerns, but it will be a quick mover. But it will turn in, as we discussed yesterday, into a rather small but a compact and intense storm for portions of South Dakota, extreme northern areas of Nebraska, and into the upper plain states, and a severe weather outbreak in the Midwest. This will bring in some wind and some colder, blustery, unsettled spring conditions. Then we have a little bit of a break this weekend. It gets windy. We have a bit of a chinook. But the system next week is showing signs it's going to become an intense spring storm. Early next week, maybe as early as Sunday night, we're going to see snow breaking out in far western Wyoming, eastern Idaho, and the Wasatch Front of Utah and into the Great Basin states. This system has got all the earmarks of becoming an intense spring storm. The track is in question, and we'll show you why. Usually in these situations this far out, I like to use the term paint with a broad brush because it is very early in the ballgame for exact and specific details. So I'm going to show you maps that show snowfall totals and precipitation totals, but you don't want to look at that as the gospel truth. You want to just look at what the trend is and try to focus in on the areas where the impacts may be the highest. Tomorrow, we'll have a better idea on the track and position of the system, but I want to give a heads up to livestock interest. Livestock interest across Wyoming, South, North Dakota, Nebraska, southeastern areas of Montana, maybe sections of Colorado as well, especially Colorado's northern and western areas. With a lot of folks in calving operations either finishing up or starting up, this system next week will be a large concern for livestock interests in the region, and we'll show you why. So let's first of all take a look at the satellite imagery this morning. Here's today's system. Pretty impressive on the satellite imagery of the system coming in from California. The main circulation is still back here, but as we've been mentioning, it's a system coming through in fragments and pieces like they have lately. This area of cloudiness is basically the next system. It doesn't look very impressive right now, and that's why it's likely going to end up being a bigger storm for us. We've been seeing these storms mature and reach peak strength as they hit the West Coast, then break into pieces by the time they get to us. This time around, the disorganized area of low pressure will get organized in the Great Basin, then into the plains as it heads east. That's why it's going to be a little bit of a system to watch and maybe a bigger weather maker as it comes on through. So here's today's 500 millibar chart showing that broad trough coming into the Great Basin in western states, a very familiar scene that we have seen here over the last few weeks. So we'll see more spring snow into the high country, throwing more late season snowpack buildup into the high country. Then tomorrow, this is by tomorrow afternoon, that tight low up in around Sioux Falls there, becoming an intense little storm. As we said yesterday, it's going to be a problem maker. You can see South Dakota there, northern Nebraska, Minnesota, northwest Iowa, getting into the act, and that's mostly going to be snow. Elsewhere, you'll see snow in the high country. There'll be some accumulating snow in this area up here as it comes on out. Generally scattered showers elsewhere. The I-70 corridor dry hole continues, unfortunately, for there. This is what the snowfall looks like. So you're going to see an intense area of snowfall over most of South Dakota with this system, far southern areas of North Dakota, patchy areas of accumulating snow elsewhere. So this is system number one, in and out very quickly. And here's that threat for severe weather. This is for really tomorrow, today. We will see some thunderstorm activity breaking out back here as the low approaches, but the real severe weather day is going to be tomorrow and into tomorrow night. Then the flow straightens out over the weekend. West to east flow means, well, at least somewhat of a warming trend, a windy trend, but we do get a chinook. Look at that. This is classic. See how the orange here is east of the divide? Classic Chinook from the Canadian Rockies all the way down into the plains of New Mexico. So we have this little wedge here of a brief warm-up, but that's all it is, because here comes the next low coming into the Great Basin. Now this is where it gets a little bit more murky, and this is where the computer modeling has a very difficult time. There's a lot of jet energy, a lot of jet stream energy. When I say that, I mean the winds aloft with this trough are really, really strong. And when these strong jet stream winds come into the western United States, interact with the terrain and other things, the models will sometimes have a really difficult time with the track, especially when this is 5 days out. This is by 6 p.m. on Monday. Ahead of this system, we're going to see snow break out ahead of the system in parts of Montana, western and central northern Wyoming as early as late Sunday night and during the day Monday and into early Tuesday, especially here as the storm digs in. There's going to be an area of snow right there. So as early as Monday, we're going to have travel problems in that area I just highlighted right there as the system digs in. This is also a system that will bring heavy snow to parts of the Wasatch Front of Utah, thunderstorm activity, and a lot of unsettled weather there. So we're pretty confident of this general scenario by Monday, but after Monday is where we've got to sort things out. What I'm going to do is show you what we've done in the past. The three major models that we look at are the European model, the GFS model we call it. That's the Weather Service model that's produced here in the United States. Then the Canadian model that the Canadians put together. And so those three global model suites tend to be the ones that we look at the most. There are other ones out there. So this is the European by noon Tuesday. By noon Tuesday, we have an intense storm right over that point where Colorado meets Nebraska in southwest Nebraska there. And the storm becomes better organized and intensifies rather rapidly by Tuesday morning and the Tuesday afternoon. This is the GFS model. It's slower, it's further north, and it's further west. Then we have the Canadian model, which is slower and further south. These placements right here, which one will be correct? That's the $1 million question. I will tell you that actually there's no guarantee that any one of these is correct. So what we have to do is we just kind of have to paint with that broad brush. But when we have this much jet stream energy, you can see the lines packed together. There's a lot going on here. There's a lot of energy with this system. What'll happen is these strong jet stream winds cross the continental divide. This causes a natural spin, which a lot of times will pull these lows either north or south, depending sort of on the angle of the attack. And so the timing and the speed of the system is really, really important. If the European model is correct, what this basically means is the storm gets east of the divide during the day Tuesday and the Tuesday night and takes a little bit more of a southerly track. The GFS model, if it comes in like this means it will be going more north. The Canadian model means slower and will end up more south. The Canadian model might actually end up down here with the low and pull it a lot further south. So what I'm saying is we don't know where the storm is going to track just yet. But as we get closer, we'll have a better idea. So I'm going to show you, this is the second system where the potential heavy precipitation is going to be. As I started the podcast, keep in mind, this area of heavier precipitation may be more north. This area of heavier precipitation may be south. But there is good consensus that there is going to be some form of an axis probably within this area I'm just highlighting. I think the heaviest snow is going to be somewhere in that circle with that band of heavier moisture kind of fluctuating north and south. But you can see how heavy the precipitation is, and it is going to be almost exclusively in the form of snow. So again, do not look at these totals and do not say that's what you're going to get just this yet. For display purposes only. And again, this band of heavier snow could end up being more down here or more up here or settle in this area here. With the combination of heavy winds, these are the wind gusts by Tuesday afternoon. Very strong winds across the Dakotas, eastern Wyoming, northeast Colorado. You're going to end up with really strong winds in New Mexico and the Texas Panhandle if the storm takes a little bit more of a northerly track. So we're going to have heavy snow in some areas, and we're also going to see very strong winds. And look at these temperatures. Look at these temperature anomalies by Tuesday afternoon. So it goes without saying, for folks in the Dakotas, most of, if not all of Wyoming, a good portion of Nebraska, then maybe far southern areas of Montana and the mountains of Colorado, we got to watch this storm system as a potential big one, and one that would be a concern for travelers and certainly for anyone in calving operations. So we are going to keep a very close eye on this. Tomorrow we'll have hopefully a few more answers, or maybe a little bit of a better idea on track. Stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow.